Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the Franchise Guide.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide, the show where we help corporate executives experience time and financial freedom via franchising. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to be continuing our series here on They Ask, You Answer. So previous episode, we talked about Marcus Sheridan talking about his book, They Ask, You Answer, and the 5 key areas to be addressed in your content and in your marketing. And last week we had talked about pricing and investments. And today we're going to talk about reviews. Now, the interesting part about reviews is, I'm not here to review every single franchise. That there's a lot of research, but ultimately, our approach is a little bit differently. So number one, 4,000 franchises in 70 plus industries in the United States alone. That is a full-time gig. By the time you review them all, there's going to be new brands, or maybe some brands that are no longer available, whether they're no longer in business and or they've maxed out and no longer offering franchise territories or locations. So with reviews, there's a couple things, and I received this question, and this is a great question because it's part of the due diligence process. And reviews there's a few types of reviews, right? So you're going to find reviews for the actual service. So, for example, if it is a cleaning franchise and a cleaning service, you may find some reviews online to your local market. You want to look at all the reviews, the positive, the negative, the kind of in between. But keeping in mind, you want to look at reviews when researching a brand. Maybe it's reviews across the country because maybe a particular franchise was not following the system, or some growing pains where they were experiencing some employee turnover and things like that. So there's the actual end user. So as a franchise owner, you're going to have clients and customers. So it is important to look at those reviews, especially when you are looking at a franchise resale. You want to make sure the current franchise owner really took care of the customers in that particular market. So customer reviews are important, and you want to look at that across the board. But then there's reviews of the actual franchise itself. And now, there are things like rankings and some of the big companies that are out there. I'm not going to just name specifics, but you know who they are. And they'll put rankings and things like that. And they're great. Some of them are based off of how many new locations were added. And that's all important for growth. But I don't think that's really the most important. I would say that's important, but there's a lot of additional factors that are well ahead as far as the total importance. And really what it comes down to is when after speaking with the franchisor, or it's speaking with franchisees, both in and outside your market. And that's where you're going to get your review. So you have the end user review, which you'll find in, Google reviews and Yelp and all that, great stuff. And that's important, but you want to talk with franchisees that are currently running that business. So not just your local market. You may, I always recommend starting outside your market and talking to franchisees across the country and just seeing how their experience has been. 2 categories, right? There's actually more than 2, but if you had to, in its simplest form, talk to owner operators, people running it full time, and then talk to others that are running it part time, semi-absentee. Why would you want to speak with both? To get a full picture, especially if you're not sure how you want to run that business, if it's full time or part time. Also, the owner that's running it part time has incurred additional costs. How's that affected his or her investment? Has that affected the break-evens, the scalability of the business? So you want to talk to both types of owners in all different markets just to get a really good perspective. And as you move further along, start contacting your local franchisees and things like that. You want to, not group, if you're in the cleaning business, don't group everyone into the cleaning industry. That's another mistake I see people make. Every brand is different. Some brands will have you out there cleaning, and others will never have you touching a mop or a chemical or a spray bottle. They'll have you networking and going to chamber events. So really hone in and focus on that specific brand. Franchisees across the country, full-time, part-time, get their feedback, talk to the guys that have been doing it for a while, talk to the rookies to see how their first year went. Was their investment in line? But those are the true reviews. That's the true feedback that you're going to get as far as how things are going. The FDD will also list every franchisee if there were any closures. And franchises, unfortunately, it's a business. So some franchises have closed. There's certain systems that never had a closure. Others have closures. Some will be due to underfunding. Some will be, sometimes we never really get the full picture, but maybe it was lack of franchisor support, and that's why you want to do your due diligence. Deaths, divorces, things like that. You'll see things where either the brand had closed or they transferred to another owner. Life happens. There are certain things that are going to happen. It can happen to any one of us. So in many cases, the franchisor will assist in that sale or that transfer, to the new franchise owner in the area. So, reviews are important, but make sure you not just look at the online reviews. You can also find online reviews. I'm not sure of a particular site for the actual franchise itself, but you want to make sure you're talking with the guys doing it day in, day out. Make sure they're real, legitimate reviews and get to speak with them. And they're all listed in the franchise disclosure document. The franchisor will also give you lists. They'll give you recordings of calls. There'll be live group calls. I understand a lot of people are working during the day, so you'll get some recording calls so you can listen to that maybe on your way home from work, on your commute back or into the evening. So reviews are very important part of the due diligence process. Validation, we talked about, the 3 stages of validation: talking to the franchisor, meeting with the franchisor at the very end, and then right smack in the middle, validation. That is a crucial step. One step is not more important than the others. You want to make sure to complete all 3 steps, but that middle step of talking to franchisees, crucial. Just talk to them, find their input. If it's negative feedback, see if it was an issue with marketing or what have you. Make sure that's all been resolved going forward. So that's reviews. I don't do reviews on brands. On occasion, we'll have guests come on board. As far as from a franchise company, talking a little bit about their brand, and then I'll ask them franchise questions. On occasion, you'll see a monthly spotlight of a brand. In general terms, a brand that gives back to the community, a brand that is really helping children and fighting the childhood obesity epidemic. We'll be talking in general terms, but ultimately we want to make sure that the brand's a good fit for you, and that's where we spend a lot of time on. And then we can start looking at the reviews. We're not going to blindly look at 4,000 reviews, but we're going to niche down and look at 3 brands and then really dive deep into the reviews, kind of what that looks like. But there's no need to look at brands that you can't afford, you have no interest in. It may be a brick and mortar restaurant, and you don't want to deal with or manage a lot of employees. Well, you don't have to start getting into FDD reviews and customer reviews and things like that. You want to start to niche this down and get truly specific. So that's my advice. That's our section on reviews. We have 3 more topics to go. Hopefully you enjoy this. And if I can answer any questions, it's the whole point of this series. They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. So I'll give him credit there. Feel free to reach out if it's any one of these topics. If you want me to go a little bit deeper, more than glad to. Thanks again for your support. I read every review, every comment, and we will talk soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.